Everything is fine here on Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. I'm Mike, joined by Bogie, here to talk Star Wars with all you fans out there. Just going to start off with all the business elements really quick. So hit that subscribe button, follow, like, download, rate, review, all the above. We greatly appreciate it. And a little thing that you can do. It definitely helps us get our name out there amongst all the other Star Wars channels and podcasts out there. So appreciate all y'all. Thank you. And our chat is up and running. Man, we've been, going 100% the last few weeks on the chat actually working. There was a while where it was like 50-50 chance that our chat would be up and running. So if you're listening to us live, drop your comments, ideas, questions. We'd love to bring you in as part of the show just as much as we are. So want to hear from all of you. Yeah, so how's everything going, Bogie? How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Another week here. Let's get this ball rolling.
Yeah. The snow is falling, but the podcast still rolls on. I mean, we got an inch over here. I know Bogie doesn't live too far away. If you're familiar with your Minnesota geography, Blaine is hugging right next up to Ham Lake. You're a little south from me. And it's like just at the border where like he got some rain mixed in today. And for me, it was all snow. So we got about an inch of snow, but didn't need to shovel because the driveway stayed clear. But on the grass and patio and everything, it's about an inch of snow. So it's that time of year. Here we go. Saddle up.
Yep, and when
Um,
all our Minnesota
and it's
drivers
also
forget how to drive.
I feel like they do that all the time anyways, and then it just,
What's this
it
stuff? I don't know
escalates.
how to drive on that.
Once that snow comes, people forget. That's so true. But it also means it's like cold and flu season, and I know you've got a little cough coming on. I still got a cough lingering from my pneumonia, so I don't think I even brought that up last week. So I was in the ER with so I had a procedure with my throat. I won't dive too deep into it, but from that procedure, it was an endoscopy. I ended up with aspiration pneumonia. So then I ended up in the ER for that, and I, had some antibiotics and everything, but this cough just keeps lingering around. So I know I was coughing last time. I'm still coughing today, so please show some grace as I push through this with my cough. So um,
And leave it up to Mudge, not to tell anybody that that happened.
I don't like attention, man.
But hey,
Coming from
we're
a,
all
I guess coming from a guy who has a podcast that talks about Star Wars, and I say I don't like attention, like that might be a little hypocritical, but but I actually don't. Like, I hate being the center of attention. I only do this more because of the fun of Star Wars, but like even with work, when it comes to meetings, it's like I hate when the attention is put onto me. I just don't need that. So yeah, because I we had a birthday, mutual friend's birthday that we celebrated the other weekend, and I didn't say anything, and then Bogey didn't or approached me about it after we got done recording last week. He's like, "Why didn't you say anything?" But
yeah, we're all glad and happy that you're doing you're doing well, even though you still got the lingering cough. But
well, thank you. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, I had blood clots earlier in the year, and that's what I was thinking. Like, did I get blood clots in the lungs? Thankfully, that was not the case. So even though it stinks, it's like best case scenario that it was just pneumonia that I can get cleared up pretty quickly. So I was happy about that.
I thought
Uh,
at one point we're gonna have to put the Vader outfit on so you could breathe.
well, they did recommend like part of what they think caused the aspiration is they think like I need a sleep study for like sleep apnea. So like maybe I can get like a cool sleep app or CPAP mask, and it's like a Vader one. Like, how cool would that be? I mean, I'm sure my wife Colleen would be annoyed as hell sleeping next to like, but I would be loving it the whole time. It would be freaking sweet. So if any of you out there are like very creative and can build shit, like, can you build me a Seep app that is Darth Vader? I will be truly grateful for that. So, but I don't know if I have that yet. We have to do a sleep study and find out. So stay tuned. Cliffhanger there. And speaking of cliffhangers, you like that segue right there?
Oh yeah.
I know we left last week with a cliffhanger. I know Bogey wanted to talk about something that he has, so I will hand it over to you for this.
Yeah, so for your viewers out there that can see, um, I usually have these posters up behind me of the original trilogy. And sad news was earlier this month, the creator of the original poster artwork that kind of was reshaped to do A New Hope, um, the the artist passed away. His name is Greg Hildebrandt, and he's known for doing a lot of different poster works. And for me, I've become kind of a poster collector. I've collected a lot of like Marvel posters, um, uh, for the most part. And then there's other famous posters that I've loved, even if I don't own it. It's something I think that really captivates a movie in just a single frame. I think I own a ton of Christopher Nolan's movie posters, Dark Knight, Inception, etc. But yeah, it's kind of sad to hear that, someone that created kind of an iconic image, um, has passed away, and he did a lot of other work, including uh, different. I think he oversaw some of the Marvel works that were
Okay.
done, and then the other famous ones was like Lord of the Rings. And it's what I love about movie posters sometimes is that it says so much. Again, like I said, in just one image can say
Hmm.
so much of what's going on.
A
Um,
picture says 1,000 words or whatever the expression is, and
exactly, yeah.
it truly is the case. And that's the intention for these creators of these posters, because especially back in the day, I mean, now we have trailers, and there's a lot more, airspace for commercials and all that stuff. But back in the day, like, the best way to captivate people was having these poster boards up. You would have your cinema, and people would frequent the cinema, and you know they would either look up in the newspaper what's playing, or you would just see on the wall of the cinema the different video or movies they were advertising. So this was your opportunity to capture people's attention compared to all the other ones that are lined up. So it really is an effective measure to use. And to your point, like, it says so many things about the films just in one snapshot. So why don't you hold that one up again? And I know people are probably familiar with at least the image of it. So just very interesting, and what was determined to be used for this. I mean, some things that I'm looking at that just stand out. Like, look at all the spaceships. This is a time when sci-fi was, just becoming popular, and it's a space movie, and it really is trying to grab the attention. Like, okay, there's all these spaceships that are involved in this, and it's, Star Wars is the name of the movie. So that's kind of one of the things that stands out to me. And then of course the lightsaber, because it's a different kind of weapon, and it's like, okay, what is that? Is that a sword? Is that a gun? You're not quite sure, but your attention is drawn to it. So any things that stand out to you, Bogie, with it?
Yeah, and then you got like Leia, so you got like, okay, this must be like a princess in duress that needs, I don't know, that's how I kind of look at it. But maybe these two are like going to be love figures,
Mm-hmm.
which I mean, later on you find out, brothers and sisters, but there was like that kind of romantic tension in a way throughout the movie.
Well, and
And
I
then of
think
course,
George Lucas was unsure at first of what direction they wanted to go with that. So it could
oh
have been,
really?
I don't know at what point he made that decision, but I think it was still a possibility that when this poster was created, there were still unknowns on what direction that would go. So,
And then of course
hmm.
the kind of the silhouette, you see the spaceships and everything, but that's Vader.
Mm-hmm.
That's his helmet and everything. So when you see that, that kind of gives you goosebumps of other things making the silhouette of Vader's helmet. Then you kind of just think like, okay, who's the big bad in this?
Yeah.
And that looks kind of eerie and kind of, kind of dark in a way that you're kind of like, okay, now I'm intrigued. What? So,
Yeah. And so Electro Jed, he speaks out saying, "Oh boy, I remember those days." And then the Jaws poster board said a lot and let you know some bad stuff was going to happen. Yeah, that's another iconic one, Jaws. Like, I can visually see that one in my head. Going back to that poster and talking about Leia, and this is great because, like, you can interpret things so many different ways. I think it's fascinating. Like, She does look like a princess in distress. Maybe not a princess, but like a person in distress. But at the same time, it's interesting that she's in front of him. So it also gives the impression, which we find out about Leia, is like she's actually probably not probably, she is the most intelligent one of the three of them. And she has her like ducks in a row and is the one that's like the leader, especially in that first movie. Like Luke and Han get nowhere without Leia in that movie. Even our like detention block, within the detention block, like she's the one that they're here to rescue her and she's the one ended up rescuing them. So I think it's interesting that she's in front, meaning that like she might give this impression that she's in distress, but she's going to lead the way. She's going to lead, Luke, and Han Solo isn't even in that picture. Not that I saw, at least. So
No,
I
he's
think,
not. And I don't even know. Yeah, in the remade poster, all you see is Luke, Leia, and then the two droids,
yeah. And
3PO
the
and
droids
R2.
were in that one, right? The droids.
Oh
I
yeah,
kind of,
they are. Yep.
so it's interesting that you've got C3PO and R2D2, but you don't even have Han Solo, not or Ben Kenobi in there. So definitely putting the focus on Luke, Leia, and Vader. And also interesting that after knowing what happens in the movies, they're all related. So
Yeah.
probably don't get that impression first seeing the poster, but then on the back end of it. So
And
I know that.
that's the joys of the poster. It creates, you said, so many words, and it creates a lot of questions and kind of gets you intrigued. And that's why I think you said it perfectly. Like in the past, you didn't have, I mean, unless I don't know, like let's say in the 70s, did they really have much for like trailers right before you were watching whatever cinematic movie you're going to watch in the theaters? Did they have trailers or not? I don't know. Posters was your way to go when you're going to the movie theater, that they would have all these posters up coming soon, and then
Yep.
you'd see the poster and you're like, well, that looks interesting. So
Yeah. Well, and they did have trailers. Because I know they have like the first trailer for A New Hope is available. You can look up on YouTube and find it. So I would assume that those were playing preceding the movie, but like at that point, you already bought a ticket. So how do you get the people from the street into the theater? You have to have those uh, poster boards, but then you can get people back into the theater by showing those trailers after they're already in the theater. So
hmm
um, yeah, so very interesting. And I love posters. I've always wanted to have like a theater room, and then
Oh
I want
yeah.
the stereotypical, like you've got the you know most well-known movie posters kind of surrounding the walls and everything. Like I would love to have that. That would be so cool.
And then, like, granted, it doesn't really say in this article, but I wouldn't be surprised too. Some of the other iconic posters, post Star Wars, was Indiana Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and that would make sense if it was George Lucas just bringing back, again, tribute out to his name again, Greg, uh, Hildebrandt. So may
Yeah.
you rest in peace, good man.
Yeah, but I mean, great work that he did. Um, iconic work that will live on forever. So
Because I wonder if this kind of like artwork just inspired more and more people to make their own kind of like type of poster, where I recall back in like the older films, posters were I thought movie posters were very, very basic.
mm-hmm.
Like comes to mind as like the spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, like
Oh, sure.
even like the good and the bad and the ugly. There's like you see like kind of like the desert, and you see like some like silhouettes of guys on horses. It's doesn't do a whole lot type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or if like Doctor Strangelove, it's a black and white film, but all it is in the picture is just a bomber plane. That's it.
Right.
So some of those basic ones don't do, versus what I think the evolution of movie posters have now gone a long way.
And
And I'm sure he's one of the main persons that's really drove that forward.
and I would say there are many common themes that you now see in posters. Like, you have the stereotypical poster where you've got all the characters and they're kind of like fading from front to back in size. You got the lead characters big and up front and center, and then secondary, tertiary characters are kind of smaller behind them. You've got the big bold title font and everything. So definitely some common trends that you see in posters because they've been around a while now and they know what works. So
Yeah, they don't.
there's stick to the basics, don't fix what's not broken. So
Exactly. Yep.
and Electro calls out, he says that he enjoys both of our backgrounds. Cool stuff. I will say I've been trying to get Talk Bogie into setting his shop up in his basement where he has even more stuff, and he can shock and awe all the watchers from the stuff that he has. So
Yeah, I just got to find the time somehow to get some lights set up like you do to make it kind of really pop out. But
hey, are you getting time off for the holidays? There's a
yeah,
good time to do it.
like that
I'm
for all
just
your
kidding.
viewers. Yeah, at some point you'll see it. I got a Star Trek background, and then my famous one is my Avengers wall,
Yeah,
where I got a lot of the movie posters, and then half bank things standing. So we got like the Hulk and Captain America and whatnot. So someday, whenever I get around to it.
love it. And you don't have to stick to Star Wars for this. This is just what I have. I mean, we're all nerds and geeks, so
Oh
we,
no,
we love it.
subscriptions going down,
Yeah,
going down,
right.
going
Or maybe
down.
they're going up. Maybe they're like, hey, these guys like this stuff too. No, but it's fun to kind of bring our own flavor and stuff to the visual of our channel and our podcast. So appreciate the shout out there. And hey, Scarif, Mr. Scuttlebutt, glad to hear from you. How are you doing? So should we move into well, first of all, I totally forgot. So Monday was actually a Star Wars holiday, and I completely spaced on me, and I'm, kicking myself in the foot with it. So it was Life Day this past Monday. So I know we've kind of talked about it before. We've had past episodes where we've talked strictly the holiday special and all the glory to that. Have you haven't seen that yet, have you?
Yeah,
You got to do it.
just that Halloween special or the Halloween Lego one.
Lego movie.
Yeah.
No, you got to do yourself a favor. Go watch the holiday special, which centers around Life Day, which is what was the date? What was Monday?
18th,
Okay, so I think it was
my birthday.
Monday the 18th. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Easy for you to
So my
remember.
birthday's
I
Life Day?
Yeah, I think so.
Who
Let me
knew?
let me space on, or let me make sure I'm right. All right. Life Day Star Wars. I am pretty confident it was. It at least was recently. Or I should say, when is Life Day observed? Is Life Day observed? Oh, one day off, the 17th. So it was Sunday. Sorry. So
Dang.
we have Life Day, and so that means we get to celebrate two things. We can celebrate your birthday, and then the following day we get to celebrate Life Day. So can't go wrong with that. Happy belated Life Day to all of you out there. And thank you, Electro, for the sub. Greatly appreciate it. Tell your friends. We have a deal out there that once we hit a certain amount of subscribers, we're going to do a drawing and give away prizes. So it will only be for those people that are subscribed. We'll enter your names into a drawing, and then we'll draw out a winner. So I guess you probably wouldn't want to tell your friends, because then you're like, no, I don't want them to get the prize. I want the prize. So, but, and then as viewership progresses as well, we'll have other milestones where we'll do more drawings. So just a way we're looking to grow our channel. So we greatly appreciate the support. All right. So moving on to the next topic, unless there was anything else you want to talk about posters.
No, that concluded it.
Awesome. So
Just
thank
glad I
you.
got to chime in on that just because it's something that I adore is just appreciation of movie posters.
Absolutely. Hey, it's an art. Um, Electro, I am greedy that way. Sorry. So not going to share the the subscribes.
Well, maybe they don't need to know. No,
Yeah,
I'm
they
kidding.
don't need
Just
it.
just tell them to subscribe, and just tell them there's no perks.
But yeah, you don't need to tell them there's a perk. Or he's going to end up setting up like multiple different accounts to fill up until we reach that milestone. So then he's got like 10 different names within the drawing.
Yeah, within the drawing,
It's a
increases
strategy, All right, so on to some Star Wars news. Before I get to the first topic that we talked about before leading the show, I'm going to start actually with Visions. So it has been announced that Visions will be renewed for a season 3, which will debut in 2025. So they announced that there will be 9 shorts created by 7 different Japanese anime studios. So I believe season 1 was all Japanese studios. Then season 2 was a mix of studios from all around the globe, Japan, India, the UK, the United States, I believe, and amongst others. So this one's reverting back to all Japanese studios. And some of them are returning from previous seasons. So pretty cool that we'll get 9 more shorts. For those who have watched it, if you recall, they drop all those episodes at one time. So you're able to binge through all of them if you want to. They're 20 to 30-minute episodes, if I recall. My experience from the past seasons is, it's pretty hit or miss. There are some super, super good ones out there. And then there's some that's like not my cup of tea. But still the different art styles are fantastic to see. They are not canon. So if, someone like me, I'm more partial to canon content versus non-canon, but I still love all Star Wars content. I mean, expanded universe. There's so much stuff I love about that. So I am still interested in watching it, but like the history buff in me is more focused in terms of like the linear history of the franchise. So that's kind of where my heart is more set into. So, but entertaining stuff. I know, Bogie, you haven't watched it yet. Definitely strongly recommend you doing that. Because like I said, there's some great content in there. And they started off really well with season 1, episode 1, The Duel. It's one of the best ones out there. And they even made a book following it. So one thing I'm really curious about is if they kind of carry over any of these stories into what we end up seeing in canon, whether it's like comics or books or maybe even movies and stuff, because it's a good way to get like a feeler out there to see like, okay, how do people receive this? Not necessarily for the art, but for like the concept of the story. And then they could potentially build things from that. So really curious to see the direction they go. And whenever we get more Star Wars content, I'm all for it. Anything from you? So the returning studios are Kamikaze Duga, Kinema Citrus Co., Production IG, and Trigger. And then the new studios are Anima in co-production with Kamikaze Duga, David Production, Polygon Pictures, Project Studio Q, and Wit Studio. And if you're interested in any of these studios have done in the past, like there is some good stuff out there that they've done. And I'm sure many things that our listeners are familiar with. So give these different studios a look up and see which ones might pique your interest a little bit. The other news item I have. So last week, if you recall, we were talking about the announcement of episodes 10, 11, and 12 and kind of our thoughts revolving around that. So definitely a continuation. Well, I shouldn't say a continuation because we don't know, but like they wanted to go back to the episode kind of structure, and what they've announced, Rey will be kind of a central figure within the movies. So shortly after, just days after they announced that, they come back and they say that they're dropping the Rey movie. So that was the new Jedi Order from the timeline. So I thought that was extremely fascinating, especially like some of the comments that we were seeing. If you recall, Bogie, like they were saying Rey is the central figure for the future of Star Wars and all this. And then all of a sudden, oh, we're retracting from the timeline the Rey movie for Ice Age 6. It's like, okay. So what are we saying here? I mean, there's many different ways we can interpret this. Like Bogie, what were you saying before? Like, it doesn't mean that they're getting rid of the Rey movie by any means. It just means that they could be pushing it down the road, a little more, which could obviously mean they want to develop a better story, or they really want to nail home this movie leading up to these episodic movies. So maybe they're just spending some extra time on it.
Yeah, that's what it feels like they're doing, and not trying to like not rush it and then have it be fall flat on its face, and then that just ruins your future projects potentially where you just got to scrap it all. I
Yeah.
mean, look at Marvel right now. I mean, because comes down to director, writer, like is if none of that is flowing, and then the presidents look at it and be like, yeah, this is starting to look like a shit show. Let's just take a step back. We'll put something else on the timeline for, Disney movies, and we'll figure out a different date when we feel more comfortable. Because you look at like Marvel movies, I mean, there's been how many movies that have been like, oh, it's in the works, and then they back out. I know Blade is one movie that I forget the lead actor they got to be in that movie is being frustrated because they keep they'll have a director and a writer, and then everything scrambles and they all just leave the project, and it's like, okay, back to square one, and they do it again and again and again. And now I'm curious what that actor's name was.
Yeah, and I
But
guess my question to like all of our listeners out there, so throw this in the chat if you have your thoughts, but I know we've seen it a lot with Disney content. I really haven't been noticing it or paying attention to other production companies or franchises. Like, is this just a Disney thing that we continue to see, or is this something that we're seeing all across the board? I'm really curious what people's thoughts are on that, because I've only really been seeing it with Disney, Marvel, Star Wars. Yeah, so it's definitely interesting, and I don't know if it's because they have the resources and they can be like, all right, let's do this, and then be able to retract it and not be in fear of like jeopardizing the company or the brand. But in ways, you kind of are hindering the brand a little bit, because I think a lot of people are getting fed up with all these announcements and then retractions. So I don't know, just curious if other people have seen it through other companies. But
I feel like Sony's been having trouble with that as well,
yeah.
with any of the superhero, um, whatever, what do you call it, patent,
Well, and they've been selling off a lot of that, haven't they? Because like
because they're pretty much,
Spider-Man, Marvel kind of took back, right? Or so Disney owned Spider-Man again, right? And
yeah,
and then X-Men, kind of the same thing. Was that Sony or was
yep,
that
yep,
WB? Okay.
yep, that was Sony.
So yeah.
Or you might be right. Maybe it's Warner Brothers. I don't know. But either way, it was outside of Disney,
Yep.
and they're slowly Disney's trying to buy some of this stuff back. Fantastic Four was
Yep.
another one
Yep.
that
Good
was
point.
owned by Sony, and I think the last one, I like to call it Fan Four Stick. How they like put the four in the middle.
Yeah.
It was so dumb. That movie was absolutely
Terrible.
just garbage.
I- Is that why Silver Surfer wasn't in the Avengers? Because is
Yeah,
he
Silver Surfer is part of the Fantastic Four
That's
universe.
what I thought. Because I know from the comics, it's Silver Surfer who gets sent to Earth to warn about Thanos coming. But in the movies, it was Hulk that not look what was his name? The gatekeeper.
Heimdall.
Yeah, he's the one that sent Hulk to Earth to announce Thanos is coming. So see, I know some Marvel stuff. Like I read some of the comics and everything. The
Because yeah,
comics are
they bought with that they bought, now you got Doctor Doom,
yeah.
and
Ooh,
then I think Galactus is another universe villain that is more, I think might have been more associated to, I could be wrong, but now they have rights to all that, so they're, because now they're running out of ideas too, because now that they're done with the whole Thanos saga, trying to figure out who the next bad is, since they kind of really effed up, but with Kang the Conqueror and the actor that plays him, they pretty much fired him for whatever
yeah,
allegations that are
that's
still
right.
leaning over him. So
Um, do you think they would ever bring Thanos back as like an Avenger? Because I know they do that in the comics.
no,
Like you got the multiverse.
and that's why I think they're trying to. I think they said they're trying to get away from the
True.
multiverse because it's been kind of,
Well, it's in so many franchises now. You've got the multiverse in Marvel. You've got the world between worlds in Star Wars, and it's like a cop out of like, all right, this is how we can change some things and go
yeah.
back. So Electro says if they take corporation thinking out of movie making and let the artists do their thing and the writers and directors have control, we would get much better movies. 100%.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
totally agree.
you take the business aspect out of it and you let creative minds be free and write what they want, you'll get way better stories. Now, and I think we kind of touched on this last week too. I think you still have to have a passion for the franchise you're writing about. You have to have some knowledge and you have to have some because you can, I mean, even without the passion, you can create a great story, but it might not necessarily fit in with the rest of the films and or the history or the franchise. And I think we saw a lot of that, like with the sequel trilogy and some of the more recent things. I mean, Disney has made an effort to bring in people that have, not as much prior knowledge of Star Wars to bring in original thought and original thinking. And I think that's been a risky move and it's kind of hindered some of the stories we've got. Um, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. If you take the corporation, you take the business element out of it, let the writers write, it's you're going to set yourself up for success more than not, in my opinion.
Yeah, just like we talked about maybe a couple weeks ago, like the two guys for Star Wars, again, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, you can tell they have a lot of passion and
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of knowledge within the Star Wars lore that, and then look at what they've created and it's stuff that for the most part has been a hit.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would put their trust in them. Now I know, what was it? I mean, Filoni gave the okay to the Acolyte, and there's been a lot of mixed feelings about that show. So I think some people's trust has been a little hindered from that. But I think at the same time, if you just take a step away, you still understand that like Dave Filoni doesn't necessarily have the final say. He still reports to someone, and they still have goals and objectives that they pass down to him that he still has to adhere to. So I mean, it's no different than like if you break it down even further. I mean, what did Luke Skywalker say about his character in the sequel trilogy? He's like, this doesn't feel like Luke, but he still did it because he has to, report to the people that are hiring him. So
I think he had a
if
contractual agreement that he couldn't violate, otherwise he
yep,
just loses all the money and who knows what else, reputation damage maybe, I don't know.
exactly. So Dave Filoni with O'Kane, the Acolyte, there's some of that to it. Like if they would have just been like, all right, here, Dave Filoni, we want to do this Acolyte show. Why don't you write it and create it? I guarantee you would have seen something completely different than what we got out of that show. So my trust is still, I fully trust Dave Filoni, Favreau, because of just listening to the things that they've said and talked about Star Wars gives you the impression that okay, they know what they're talking about. They understand George Lucas and his vision. So that in that regard, they have my trust still. So um I kind of want to also go back and then um after we'll go into Clone Wars. Bogie has caught up a little more on the show, so we're going to talk through some more of the episodes. All season one still. Your season one, is that right?
Yep.
Um I just kind of want to go back to that statement about Ray being the key to the future of the franchise. Like, and I talked about this last time, but that it really makes me nervous still because like I feel like there's endless options that Star Wars has of prominent characters that you could expand upon and you can move forward with. And last time we talked about Ahsoka, she's in a completely new galaxy. Like you're and limitless options for how you want to go. And I don't know. It's just what does that say? What does that tell you? Or what do you hear when you say Ray is the future of the franchise? Like, are they saying it and they because they want it to be that way? Are they fearful? Are they regretting like what they've done to characters like Luke Skywalker, Leia, Solo, because now like those characters are gone essentially, so you can't do much with those. I don't know. What do you hear when that statement is made?
Yeah, I mean, granted she's young, I guess you bring Finn back. Um, But is it just to me, as I think I've said before, is it just playing it safe and it's a known character instead of starting like all over again? I don't
Yeah.
know. I just felt like, and is it just going to be a segue? I mean, the Force Awakens, you had Solo, you had Leia, I think, right? Yeah, Leia was so you had some like returning characters to help kind of segue into the new character. So
Yep.
is that what Rey is going to be, more of just a character that helps segue to the next cast of crew that will carry the franchise forward? Is it also because she's the last legitimate, again, not legitimate, but illegitimate, illegitimate Skywalker that's
Right.
still alive? So we have to continue this whole Skywalker journey when it's like, okay, it's over and done with, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
And again, I mean, and we can't reiterate it enough. This is no reflection on Daisy Ridley as an
No,
actress,
not
because
at
I
all.
think she did a great job. I mean, she was working with what she was given, and I think she did a great job of portraying Rey. We're just talking more about the character itself of Rey and how Rey was written. It just, I don't know. Rey's character isn't the most intriguing character in Star Wars. So if that's what the future of Star Wars is holding on to, it makes me a little nervous. So anyone out there listening in the chat, if we say Rey is the future of Star Wars, mind you, there's things like the Old Republic. They've been diving into the High Republic as of recent. You got a movie that's the Dawn of the Jedi. You can revisit some of the classic characters that we already know about. You've got de-aging technology. I mean, all things considered, would you stick to Rey as being the future of Star Wars? I mean, you even have someone like Grogu, who's Grogu is going to end up being, I mean, if we use Yoda as a basis, who's over 900 years old, and Grogu is just like a baby right now. I mean, you've got almost 900 years ahead of him that you can use. And like, he's, he's an alien creature. Like, so like there's so many possibilities. And I feel like there's more of a backstory with Grogu, especially when you throw in like Order 66, you tie in, the prequel trilogy there. You've got the connection with Luke Skywalker, with the original trilogy, and then you've got Ahsoka meeting up with Grogu. So you're now throwing in, Clone Wars stuff and then the Ahsoka show. So like I would almost argue that Ahsoka and Grogu, you've got more potential in the future of Star Wars than Rey. So that's all I'm trying to say. But yeah, if you listeners out there, if you hear Rey is the future of Star Wars, what thoughts come to mind? So let us know your opinion. All right, so let's move on to Bogie. Catch us up with your Clone Wars experience. Where are you at? What are your
All right.
thoughts?
Yeah, all right. So yeah, for your viewers, this is technically spoiler warning. I'll be talking and in depth the things I like and don't like about these episodes. But so with that, you've been warned. I'll start off. So where I left off before was season 1, episode 14, called Defenders of the Peace. And this is where now Anakin's injured. They were on this planet where I think I told you around like the Halloween time. It was kind of a spooky. They had like the monsters lurking in the darkness and in like the tall grass.
Yeah.
And then you find out it's like these monkey creatures called the Lumen, or the Lumen colony. Um, and they're all about like, get off my planet. We're not here to join any sides. We don't want war. We don't want to fight. Just
Mm-hmm.
we were we were in peace. Leave us in peace. But they were talked into helping Skywalker heal. So in this episode, they're still at their colony camp, and that's when the Separatists show up. And you think they're looking for, was it Sakura, Ahsoka, and Anakin, and like I think it's Commander Cody and Captain Rex is with them.
Okay.
Find out that's not who they're really looking for. They find out they have a test weapon they want to test out. And I found this kind of like cheesy, and it would have been funny if Dustin was on. He'd be shaking his head right now. But it was like the one of the leader guys was like, "We have a new weapon, and it's gonna kill all life, but it won't do anything to droids." And all the droids were like, "Yay!" But then he's like, "But I need two test subjects." And then they're like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "You two."
No, not us.
Yeah. Like you said, it
Sacrificial
wasn't.
lambs.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty much like a bomb that hits and it just like disintegrates all life. But like anything mechanical, like a droid, it doesn't affect them. So they're looking then to go test it on that colony, and then that's when like the Jedi's and Rex and Commander Cody, they try to figure out a plan to like take him out, and they're trying to get the colony to help out. The colony leader is being kind of a douche about like, we can't fight, but it's like you're gonna die then. He's like, well, then that's our fate. Who says that as a leader? Like, well, if it does happen, it happens. That's just
So be it.
so be it. Yeah.
Can we vote for another guy?
Yeah, yeah. And then his daughter ends up kind of intervening and kind of got a few of them to kind of like uprise, and they all get like rope and fork sticks and whatever, and like do their thing to kind of take out the droids as they come approaching. Um, and then at some point, I think there was like a lightsaber battle, like as they're marching forward, and they had all these pods to kind of help make a barrier. The Jedi jump over and they go take on like these hordes of droids coming in. And the animation of Sakura doing her like kind of gymnastics Ahsoka style, but like as an adult, like
Yeah,
I thought the animation was amazing. Like every time they were all taking on the droids, just the Ahsoka, Anakin, and Sakura. So
yeah.
I thought that was amazing.
And that is one of my favorite things about the Clone Wars show is like the fighting styles like that because you know animation gives you a little more liberties on the drama that plays out in these fights because like you compare Ahsoka in the Clone Wars fighting and then compare it to like how she fought in the show Ahsoka. It's like a little night and day difference there, but
Mhm.
that's a benefit to the anime or not anime to the animation, giving you those liberties to make things a little more interesting to watch.
Yeah. And then in the end, when they were about to fire, because they also had like a force field up to help the first bomb that came in, it didn't do anything. And then when the second one they were loading up, Anakin ran down there and it was able to take out the tank that had that weapon on it. And then
Sure,
they arrested the general guy or whatever, and all the droids were destroyed. So, and then ended with the that leader of the colony, the Lumen colony, you know, kind of like guiltily say thank you, but I'm afraid what you've now brought upon us
sure.
is that now we're considered,
Attention.
yeah, attention, and now we're probably considered allies when we didn't want to be part of any of this. So kind of, and that's how it kind of just ended. So I wonder if they'll come back in the picture or not later on, but we'll see. Move on to the next episode, episode 15 of season one called Trespass. This episode was beautiful and it's just perfect timing. The fact that we're getting snow because it takes place, and I forget the moon of Plantora, I think is what they
Yeah,
called it or something.
I think
And
that's
it's
right.
and it's very much a snow planet and totally like that's what I love about uh Empire Strikes Back is that beginning, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes when they're on the snow planet. I found that just amazing and just us living in Minnesota is kind of like, hey, looks like my backyard middle of the winter time. It's like
Oh, and hey,
the whole winter vibe.
do you know what looks good in snow, especially when it's dark?
Who?
The glows of lightsabers and lasers. Like
Yeah, yes.
they look so cool. And like even Force Awakens, when they're fighting on the space station, what's the name of the planet? Not the Death Star, but Star
Star
Killer
Killer.
base. Yeah, and because remember there's like snow all over it, and Rey and Kylo
Kylo Ren
Ren
when they
are
go at it.
dueling, and that I mean the imagery in that fight was phenomenal. Like I love seeing the glow of the red and the glow of the blue reflecting off the snow. It's so cool.
Hmm.
So yeah, sorry, continue.
Oh yeah, no worries. Um, and then on top of that too, it gave me such Empire Strikes Back vibes when, of course, the storm or the clone troopers are all wearing their normal armor. Maybe it looks a little beefier to keep them warm. But
Yeah,
when you had Anakin and Obi-Wan showed up, they had like the whole outfit that they would wear in Empire Strikes Back with the fur, the goggles, the whole get up and the
yeah.
coat. I was like, oh, that is so cool. It looks just like from the movie. And they must carry that on somehow throughout. So I thought that was awesome. And they constantly were like wearing it on and off while they're traveling around. Um, and then too bad this wasn't more closer to Halloween then, because this definitely gave more of a horror vibe. They show up at the base, and this like is like deserted, except like, or I shouldn't say deserted. It's just there's no life, and there's all these clone troopers just dead, and like they're all like frosted over and everything, and they're like there's no survivors on this base. And on top, and when they were entering into the base, there was all these stakes with the helmets on top.
Mhm.
And it just gave you an eerie vibe of like, okay, I don't think droids would do this. Like, okay, what are we walking into?
Yeah,
And then they're like, oh, there's a droid base not too far from here. So they go on their little jet skis, whatever, all the way to the droid. In the in the droid base, there's all the droid heads laying everywhere. And then they kept saying to each other, like, I don't think the clone troopers or the droids did this with each other. I think it was something else.
some third
And then
party.
yeah, and they finally were able to get some imagery of some sort, I think from the droid base, and you saw like something like came across and like took out a droid or something in this like camera frame. So you're like, oh yeah, it's something else. And then Anakin and Obi-Wan go looking out further out for potentially what it is, and it looks like I would describe them. They're like because they had like these weird eyes and then like their mouth, whatever. But it just gave me the vibe of like the sand people from Tatooine, but
Sure.
make this be the snow people from this planet. That's how I looked at it, and they were kind of fur balls. They were like kind of like half Chewbacca, half Yetis or whatever,
Yeah,
um and then how the chairman was such an a-hole about for the one whatever wherever the planet they're on, he's like, no, we got to take them out, and he like ends up pretty much starting a war with them, where the senator was saying like, no, we can make peace, but he just had this vengeful like, no, we got to eradicate them. And that whole fight scene between the two people was like pretty intense and everything, and Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka were like, no, we can't, we're not going to intervene. Even the senator was trying to get them to get a chance to like do something. They're like, no, this is your mess now. You got to clean it up.
yeah,
And I thought like just like the fight in general between, granted poor troopers that they didn't ask for this, but they have to follow the senator, the leaders, the chairman, whatever, into this battle. Um, but no, overall, I thought that that's probably going to be one of my favorites of the season so far. Just the whole dialogue and everything. And in the end, when the senator finally goes and talks to the leader of the Snow People, whatever their names are, they eventually come to truce. And she said that we'll leave you guys alone, and this is your home. And so I love the whole concept of the whole episode was very well done.
yeah.
And again, like I said, perfect timing, the fact that it was a snow planet when we just got snow today.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's Pantoria, and their species are Pantorans.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to recall, was there a little girl Pantoran? Not a little, but a younger girl Pantoran featured in the episode? Trying to recall.
I'm trying, that's not the snow people, or is that the snow people?
Yeah, I think that's the Snow People.
Okay, so there was no little, I mean, there was of the other group. I mean,
Okay.
there was a little girl that was playing as the senator.
Okay, that's the one I'm thinking. Is she
Yeah.
blue?
Yeah,
Like
they're all
blue
blue.
skin? Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So that's who I'm thinking of. So, um, be mindful of that character. She's going to show up again in the future. So,
Oh, okay.
um, this story definitely has repercussions down the road. So you will revisit this, not this episode, but this kind of story
Got
again.
it.
So,
Well, I look forward to it because like I said, I thought her character and then her dynamic with Obi-Wan telling her like, "Dude, I thought you talked to the leader, you could figure it out." I was like, no, this is your mess. You got to
yeah.
figure it out.
And if I remember correctly, I think it even bleeds over to the Bad Batch. So,
Oh, interesting. Okay. No, I'm really intrigued.
yeah. Well, this is what This is the beauty of Clone Wars, man.
So yeah, that pretty much kind of concludes that episode. So then now moving on to episode 16, The Hidden Enemy. It looks like I don't know what planet they're on, but it looks like Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the clone troopers were gonna ambush somehow the droids. But then this is when all of a sudden like they had this like special cannon and they were gonna take them all out, only to find out like they're all splitting in different directions, and all of a sudden they're like coming into the buildings out of nowhere, and it's like okay, our plan ambush is that now we're being ambushed because someone told them our battle plan. And this is where they got to go now do this whole investigation of all the clone troopers, or at least the one batch of guys that they were able to narrow it down to find out who leaked the information. And it was I don't know if he's like the lead trooper of his group, but it's Slick was his
Yeah.
name. So they eventually end up capturing him, but it was like a whole cat and mouse game of the whole episode trying to capture him. Let alone figuring out that it was him, even though he's the leader. They were trying to like pin the finger on everybody else of his
Yep.
crew, and then they finally figured out like, well, where were you? We all went right towards the mess hall, and all of a sudden you went left. Like, where did you go? So that's how they were able to pinpoint that and everything. And I like the dynamics between uh Captain Rex and Commander Cody, like their teamwork to kind of trick him and take him down.
Yeah.
And then of course then this was all like a ploy to get Obi-Wan, which I was a little confused, but it looks like it was a ploy to get Obi-Wan and Anakin to go to this like part of town in this building, and it ends up being the return of Vitress or
Ventress.
Ventress comes back, and then they kind of like duke it out for a little while. I mean, it was kind of fun, but I was like, okay, what's the point? I don't just feel like two against one, unless she is that confident that she thinks she's going to take them both on and defeat them. I don't know. I just feel like she always loses and runs away, and which is exactly what happens. Um, so
You'll
yeah,
find out.
that's what.
You'll find out.
Yeah, yeah. I know you told me she plays a big part down the road here. So,
Yeah.
um, that's all I can kind of remember from that episode is that they caught the trooper Slick. I can't remember if there was a whole like army from the other side of town, but I think they were able to get their defenses up. So I think it was kind of a standoff, if I recall right. And then the episode kind of ends.
And this
So
was on the planet Christophsis, or is that what?
yeah, that sounds right. I didn't get a chance to write it down, but yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. I
Looked like a
can't.
city planet.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact pronunciation, but it's like Christophsis or something like that. That's the other cool thing about this show is like you jump around to these different worlds, so like you really get to see how expansive the Clone Wars was and how many systems were like impacted by it.
Hmm.
And like some of them it was just all a ploy, and some of it is like liberation, some of it is systems that are like in the other one or the other episode you're talking about just wanting to stay out but are just being brought in. So it's really cool.
So that kind of ends that episode. So we'll segue now into the next one, season one, episode 17, the Blue Shadow Virus. And here comes another episode with Jar Jar Binks.
So a good one, right?
It's probably the best one so far of him, but he still had
Okay.
his moments where I was like, good Lord, like so yeah, what's happening on this episode is Naboo is kind of in trouble. There's a lot of separatists that are like slowly invading. Um so Amidala and Jar Jar Binks return to Naboo to see what they can do to bring support and the whole situation and what's going on. Um and also there was like in this episode, which I saw in other episodes, is that it seemed like they had this like a different looking droid, and it looked like the leader droid. He'd either be in the tank or he'd be leading, and he just looked different. So I wonder if we're gonna
Yeah.
get more of that. I think in this one they like got it got its popped its head off or whatever, and then they stole it and they were trying to like run its program or whatever, but then it like self-destructed or whatever.
Isn't it kind of like a flatter looking head, almost like
Yeah,
binocular looking type of
yeah,
thing? Yeah. Yeah, those are kind of like they're generals. They're the like logic and knowledge and like strategists
okay.
for their fighting. And then obviously like the what are they? D1 or the standard droids, battle droids that B1, I think it is, maybe. I don't know. Those are like the fighting ones, and then they've got different types of fighting droids as well. But yeah, the ones you're describing are kind of like the generals, with the
Okay.
logistics and everything, strategy.
Okay. Because I started noticing that, and
You'll
so
see more of them and leading different droid armies.
okay, okay. And that's what I figured, but I thought I'd maybe clarify and
Yeah, for
or
sure.
get you to clarify it for me because I figured that's what it was. But
Yep.
so, anyways, yeah, I think they're trying to like pull information out of the. I think it was a full, either it was the head or the full droid. I can't remember.
I think it was the head, if I recall. I think you're right.
Okay. Yeah, it could be, yeah, either one. Bottom line though is that as they're trying to pull information and they're trying to figure out like there's some secret, I don't know, base that's running experiments or whatever. And as it's like trying to like explain or what it was like spilling the beans, Jar Jar Binks is fooling around. He gets his tongue stuck on something, and then he like clumsy and he hits like all these shelves with all these droid parts, and they all fall over, and then they land right on the droid, and the droid just destroyed. And it's like, oh man. Only to find out the thing he was trying to like being all clumsy was like this butterfly he was trying to like eat. And so then
I
also out
don't
of nowhere,
remember
like
that.
Amidala's like, well, what's this? And they're like, oh, it's the sludges over and blah blah blah, close to Gungan or whatever. And they're like, oh, that must be where we have to go. I'm like, you kidding me, Jar Jar? You're gonna get the information from the droid, and then all of a sudden Jar Jar just gives you like just drops a huge hint, like, oh, I guess we're going there. Because the droid, I think, or the butterfly was in the droid or something, and then they like figured out like this sludge that was on it, and it's just like
Okay.
a butterfly with some sludge on it. Like what the fuck?
I don't recall that. So it must have been like so
Oh, it was really
abstract
cool.
to me that it's like
Yeah,
I'm very forgetful.
yeah. Just it's just the fact that I happened to watch that episode like literally almost like right before we started our podcast. That
Sure.
I took that note down. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, Jar Jar. Jar Jar doing Jar Jar things.
Yeah.
He's
So,
always
anyways,
getting into trouble, Okie day.
so then Padme and Jar Jar go follow their, their lead, only to find out like these they get in like this area and there's like all these like little like camera things that pop out of the ground and it's like looking at them and then it goes back down and then like they don't notice it. And then also out of nowhere, like a dozen battle droids come out of nowhere and they arrest them both and then they bring them into their like into the lair or lab lair underground. And you got I think his name's Vindy. He's the mad scientist that's creating this
Oh yeah.
blue virus, which I should say earlier in the show, you come across another Gungan who had all these like I don't know what to call them, like little elephants with little heads or something. They were like
Okay.
drinking out. They were drinking out of the water. All of a sudden, like four of them just drop dead. So she tries to save the herd and says that yeah, it's whatever this virus is, it's in the water. But this mad scientist has found out how to vaporize it and put it in the air. So
Okay.
he's got like all of a sudden you find out he's got like a ton of these like bombs that are ready to go off, and he's gonna contaminate the entire planet. And it's like his whole plan to like contaminate the whole universe with this. And so I'm guessing he's some mad scientist that's working for the Separatists to give them the advantage.
Sure.
Um, and then Padme had requested that Obi-Wan and Anakin show up to help assist with this, and I'm like, of course she did, of course she would. And then I think Ahsoka tags along as well. And there was at times like Anakin kept getting pissed, and he's like, "How you not sent a rescue party out to find Padme yet? How come you haven't done this
Oh
yet?"
yeah.
Like it's like you can tell all this like rage and vengeful, and it's kind of like a good
The
thing.
ornery teen coming out in him again.
Yep, yep. And then there was like one time that like I think they were waiting because I think Ahsoka went out on some like a recon to f figure out where the base is and whatnot. And that's where I think she found out one of the cameras came up and then like they were
Mm,
able to dodge it, but then she was able to communicate like I think I found the base, but there's like these entry points. We got to figure out what's the best way. And meanwhile, Anakin and Obi-Wan are waiting for her response, and Anakin's just like has like no patience and he's getting all pissed off. And Obi-Wan's like, "Hey, you just gotta calm down." He's like, "I can't calm down." He's like, "Yeah, I can tell." Like right there, I can tell that Obi-Wan knows he loves Padme, and this
yeah.
is probably going to be a problem down the road.
Yeah.
But but then the cool part was when they like infiltrate the base, then they all like Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka like all enter in different points of the base, and there's like these cool like corridor shootouts and using their lightsabers and everything. That animation was just amazing. But yeah, then it concludes where they save Jar Jar and Padme, and the the mad scientist was almost got away with it, and he was bringing one like a vial or like a case with a couple more vials. He tried to escape, but eventually Anakin and Obi-Wan stopped him, and they, whatever, arrest him, and they save Naboo from being destroyed from this blue shadow virus, whatever it is called. So,
Sure. Yeah.
and
So
then yeah, then the episode ends. So.
I feel like yet another almost Halloween related because like, ooh, a mad scientist. That's kind of like spooky Halloween type of a theme. So maybe all these were like released in October. So that's why it
Easily
has
could have
like
been.
that common theme to them. Um, but no, like you brought up some good points, which is what they'll continue to tap into a little bit as you progress through what you were talking in that last episode. So one of them being Anakin's, you know, anger and rage that kind of lead him more towards the dark side as, things progress. So here and there, you'll get these little glimpses of him kind of, reacting to his emotion and his passions and his because what do they call it? Not possessions, but attachments. The attachments he has. On top of that, kind of Kenobi's intellectual understanding that something's going on with Anakin and Padme. Because if you recall, this is taking place between episode 2 and episode 3. And
Yeah.
episode 2, they have that private wedding at the ceremony at the end. And then episode 3, you see them, first meet and they talk, and Padme gives the news that she's pregnant. But there's no indication in any of those movies that anyone knows what's going on. But obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi is around him all the time, and he's probably, picking up some hints. And you'll see how Obi-Wan's kind of reaction to that situation progresses as we continue on. And not to, I don't think it necessarily spoils things, but like he will have a tendency to kind of look the other way and pretend like it's not happening because of his feelings towards Anakin. So you get to see how that impacts him as he moves forward.
Yeah,
Because then you're led to in episode 3 that you were my brother Anakin, I loved you. So all the sacrifices he made for Anakin Skywalker, for him to turn on him the way that for the way Anakin's turning on Obi-Wan Kenobi in the situation he's putting him into. So it all builds up to that moment, and you'll get little snippets like you did here, um, along the way.
yeah. I felt Obi-Wan was already kind of they already kind of knew in Attack of the Clones, the second movie. They all started like in the very beginning when they were being assigned to be her bodyguards. And
Mm-hmm.
remember when they were riding the elevator, he kind of looks over and he's like, "You're sweating." Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not. So it's like that. And then like I think there's other little scenes that maybe you could tell like Obi-Wan kind of probably looked over and be like, "Yeah, I guess I figured so." And then that scene where they're flying the gunship to shoot down Dooku, and they get hit, and Padme falls off the gunship, and she's like, "Turn the ship around!" And then Obi-Wan has to yell at him, saying like, "You'll be expelled from the Jedi Order." Like he knows something's up,
Yep.
and I can really tell throughout the Clone Wars. It's just more and more evident that he kind of just smirks and kind of like you said, then like just turns and looks the other way, like I'm. It's like I'm not gonna get in the middle of this, but I'll warn you, but I can't make you do type like stop being in love with her or
Right.
something. I
Right.
know down the road I wonder if it's just gonna, like I said, I've been spoiled on things that he's gonna have a love interest. Obi-Wan will. So then will he have some empathy towards Anakin? Like, well, I'm not gonna say anything, but don't be dumb and don't get caught or something.
Yeah. That just wait till you get to that point too. I um I will rephrase what you said, because you said he will, or maybe he already has. So
Oh,
I'll just rephrase it that way and see how it impacts things for
a little
you.
teaser, huh?
Yeah, a little teaser for you. Those were, yeah, just I'm excited for you to get to that point where it gets brought to the forefront. So
I look forward to it. I can't
yeah,
wait.
there's some great characters in that, ones that you already know, and you're just gonna get more background and more information on them. So it's so good. I can't remember what season that is. That might be like season 3 or season 4. But yeah, you'll be there sooner than you know it. Well, cool. Thanks for bringing your reflections on these episodes. Keep bringing them. I'm enjoying kind of reliving them through you. Um, as you were talking through these, I'm like, I should like rewatch these as you're watching them, just so I can, you know, remember myself all the details of it. Because some of them I recall, and then like I don't really recall the Jar Jar Binks butterfly situation thing. Like okay, what was that? But maybe that's because my mind just blocked that out. But so if I rewatch some of these, then I can contribute it more to what you're talking to. So good stuff, Bogie. I think that's pretty much all we have for today. So I will kind of wrap it up. I will call out. So we won't be recording next week. It's the holiday season, and I will, as tradition has it, I go up to my family's cabin in the UP, Michigan. There's no electricity, no running water, no indoor plumbing, no nothing. So like, I have no way of recording, but we will be back the following week with first 2 episodes, I think, for Skeleton Crew will be available. So we will watch those, and then we will bring our reflections on those to everyone. So again, I'm excited to have Bogie join us for the first time with new show episode reviews and everything. I feel like those are like the best episodes and the most interesting. Not that other stuff isn't interesting, but it's just because everything's new to all of us at the same time that it's like fun just kind of reacting to it, and then giving our like thoughts on where we think the show is going, what's going to happen, predictions, all of that. It's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Can't wait.
But again, yes, we won't be recording next week, so apologize for that. You're just gonna have to wait 2 weeks for us to come back. And I will speak to our social media handles really quick. So you can find us on Twitter at DetBlock AA23pod, on Instagram at detention_block_AA_23, and then our Facebook group and YouTube channel, Detention Block AA23, a Star Wars podcast. And of course, you can find us on TikTok now at DetBlock AA23. Hit that subscribe button, bring us your follows, downloads, ratings, reviews, all of it. We greatly appreciate any little thing that you can do to help us get our channel's name out there amongst all the Star Wars channels. But yeah, looking forward to more stuff to come. And something popped in my mind as I was reading through all that, and now it escaped me. What was I going to say? Oh, well, must have not been that important. Any final thoughts from you, Bogie?
No, just wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving next week.
Yeah, good call. Happy Thanksgiving to all fellow American Star Wars DetBlock fans out there. When was Canada's Thanksgiving? Wasn't that like early November? I feel
Oh,
like Canada's Thanksgiving is earlier in the year. So, anyways, uh, have a
happy
safe
belated
holiday.
Thanksgiving for
Yeah,
them.
belated Thanksgiving for them, belated Life Day for all of us. But if you plan on traveling, be safe. Enjoy the time with family or friends, eat all the food, and watch football. And I have to shout out to sympathies to all the Bears fans out there. I'm sorry for that heartbreaking loss that my Packers gave you. Vikings, you continue to look pretty good, so it's going to be fun how all this transpires down the end of the road here with all the NFC North matchups that are about to take place. Because you guys have the Bears this week, don't you?
Yep.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Yeah, so have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. We look forward to seeing all of you in 2 weeks from now. So As always, may the force be with you.